Hello, my name is Mark Eager. Well, basically my whole family was immersed in music from day one. My great-grandfather had sort of 8 to 10 instruments in the house, everything from a double bass to a piccolo, which my great-grandmother was often upset about, as you can imagine. And then I, from birth really, was taken along to musical services in the Salvation Army. Then from about the age of 5 or 6, my granddad sort of started teaching me the trombone. And then it went on from there, and I was immersed in music from day one, really.
What were your first musical memories of actual pieces?
Actual pieces, well, I suppose, not so much the piece itself. My first musical memory is of actually standing on stage and slightly failing. In terms of, I was about 7, and I'd only just really learnt the trombone, and someone said, play a solo to us. And I didn't really prepare, and I stood up on stage, and I played this solo, and it wasn't great. But the thing that I hold dear is my mother's reaction, which was almost, don't ever play like that again. Don't ever embarrass me again. No, not in quite those words, obviously. But that was the gist that I took away from it. And that taught me an amazing lesson at the age of 7. And I think this is where sometimes these days, parents often get it wrong. Just praising your kids when it hasn't been very good is not great. Slightly castigating your kids so they have an awareness of what is good and what is not good is much, much better. So I took away from that the fact that the next solo I then did I had to practice for. And then when I was on stage, I wanted always to feel comfortable. And ever since then, I've had that frame of mind. So it wasn't so much a piece, it was more of an experience.
Oh, obviously you came a long way since then before studying at the Royal Academy of Music. What kind of person would you recommend an institution like that? What kind of person do you think is suited to Royal Academy of Music?
I think it has to be someone that's obviously motivated and wants wholeheartedly to be in the music business in terms of as a player. Because I think, if I say this to all my students when I've had students in the past, if your mind even thinks of doing anything else, even 1 second of thinking, oh, I might be a banker, or I might be in insurance, or I might be a doctor, go and do that. Because music, performance music, is only for those that only want to ever perform, and there's nothing else on their agenda.
And of course, you played, after quite a bit of freelancing, you played principal trombone at BBC National Orchestra of Wales between 1993 and 2006. And you premiered quite a few pieces of music during your time there. Which piece of music are you most proud of premiering?
Interesting. Yes, I did premiere several concertos that were written for me. There was a concerto by John Pickard and another concerto by Alan Hodinott. But there were 2 other pieces that were important. The Jean Francais Concerto for Trombone and 10 Winds is an unknown piece, but it's a piece of genius. I mean, Jean Francais is a great composer, and actually it's a terrific piece, so I really enjoyed that. The Takemitsu, which interestingly wasn't a premiere, Phantasma Cantos 2, I think it's one of the most extraordinary pieces of music for the trombone. Sadly, the trombone has this image, in a way, of being a bit of a joker nowadays, which is a complete farce, because Mozart never saw the trombone as a joker. Bach never saw the trombone as a joker. It was a serious solemn instrument used for church and this sort of thing. And suddenly, then in maybe the 40s, 50s, 60s, 1940s, 50s, 60s, it suddenly started being used in pantomime and jazz, and it was used for sneezes in films and things like this. And its character changed, and people now then thought of it as the joker. Well, classical composers have never thought that. Mahler hasn't thought that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Takemitsu equally didn't think that. So what Takemitsu's done is he's written a piece of music which is a great piece of music. It just happens to be the trombone that's the solo instrument. And that's what I liked about that piece. The Pickard, I was very proud of that, because John's piece was written, we wrote it sort of together. John came to the BBC, we talked it through. I knew what he wanted from the piece. He wrote it very much to my range, which was quite vast, so it goes very low, it goes very high, but it's so well written. The Hodinott was the concerto that ruined my career.
Yeah.
But that's, I wrote it with Alan, and we wrote it together, and we wanted it to be so hard that it wouldn't be a piece that generally students would play. It was meant to be a real tour de force for a top-class professional, which indeed, sadly, it was.
Yeah, no, which I assume you're comfortable talking about.
Yes,
that.
absolutely. Yeah.
When you started losing your ability to play the trombone, did it seem as if it was just a temporary thing, or did it seem inevitable that the deterioration of your...
Well, yeah, it is a very good question, because it was, in my mind, I knew straight away that I was never going to play again. Because, again, coming back to what we said about the sort of person that goes to the Royal Academy of Music, you need an inner confidence. You need an inner knowledge that you are the best in the world. Even if perhaps you're not, but you have to have this confidence that my interpretation and I am the best there. As soon as that's knocked, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I knew that as soon as, once I felt these deteriorations, okay, I tried to get it back, but deep down in my psyche, I knew that even if I did get it back, if I were to turn up at the Royal Academy, the Royal Albert Hall, and have to play the solo from Mahler 3, was I going to look in the mirror on that morning of that performance and look at my face and think, are you going to work today?
Yeah.
And I never wanted that feeling. I always, when I sat in an orchestra for the whole 25 years that I played the trombone, I always had an ultra confidence that actually I knew exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, and I did over 150 bolero performances, which is the big solo in Ravel's bolero, you know, at the Barbican, Royal Festival Hall, all over the place. 150 performances of that with no hassles at all, because I had this inner confidence in my own playing. As soon as that was knocked, I always knew. So deep down, I did know that really the end was nigh.
Yeah.
And but equally, I'm a very positive person, so I didn't think this is the end. I thought, what's next?
Yeah,
And,
that leads me on to my next question actually. Was there, on a more positive note, was there a concert or just a moment where you thought, yes, I'm back on track now, once you started conducting?
No, there was a period between the playing and the conducting that I actually got in touch with Martin Brabbins, who was a friend of mine, and asked him about conducting and you know what he because we were trombone players together, contemporaries, but he decided to go down the conducting route and I decided to go down the playing route. And so I rang Martin and we had a chat, and Martin said, well, why don't you come on the Orkney conductors course, which he was running. He managed to get me a scholarship for that, and that transition I just knew straight away. He sent me 21 scores through the post and said, you've got 6 days, because obviously I came into this conducting course late because they happened to have a vacancy. And so I had a week to prepare 21 scores. So I was at home, I sat with these scores all around, and they were talking everything from Handel's Messiah through to Rite of Spring. And everything in between, some Oliver Newson. And I sat down and I just immersed myself in these scores, and I was just in heaven. You know, I really was in heaven because I was able to interpret the scores. And, I can read, having been born into music, I read music like other people read a book. So, you know, immersing myself in a score, it's just like reading a book for me. I'll happily do this at airports, in hotels, whatever. And I find it such a joy. So immersing myself in that, and then thinking to myself, you know what, this orchestra is now my instrument. I've played the trombone, and I've enjoyed that, and I've watched a lot of others doing things. Now this is my turn, and it's my instrument to really sort of express myself. So it was a joy rather than it was a revelation in that way.
And of course nowadays you're principal conductor of Hertfordshire Wind Sinfonia, Welsh Sinfonia, and of course Cardiff University Symphony Orchestra. You like to play a range of classical favourites as well as some more contemporary pieces. What to you makes a great piece of contemporary music?
Again, that is a tough question, because I think if anyone could actually answer that, you'd have the holy grail in a way of contemporary music. Because what I believe and what others believe and what the general public believe aren't ever going to be quite the same. Because I'm coming to it from a place of knowledge and understanding, and I understand the language of music. The public don't have that understanding of the language of the general public don't have that understanding of the language of music. So for instance, one could say that an amazing contemporary piece is something the general public love, maybe by Carl Jenkins, who writes in a specific way. But I may look at something much more contemporary or just as contemporary, but on a totally different style. So someone like George Benjamin, or someone like Oliver Knussen, or Pierre Boulez or something. And I might say, I can understand their music, and I have a real empathy with that. So what creates a great piece? I think finding a depth of emotion, finding a meaning for the piece, not just reiterating what someone else. And I think this is generally true through art itself as well. I think the composer, the artist, needs to have a reason for writing the piece, in my opinion. Whether that's a political reason, whether that's a personal reason, but just writing it without any depth of understanding and meaning behind it doesn't do much for me personally. I think the composer's got to say something through the piece, and then I can truly believe it, and it can be great music.
And, well, the Crescendo project is one of the main things I want to focus on. This is possibly the most open question I'm going to ask. Basically, what is the Crescendo project? What stage are you at it? What stage are you at with it at the moment? And how can the general public get involved in helping?
The Crescendo project with the Welsh Sinfonia is sort of my baby in a way. I've always believed in youth music and firmly, think it should be on the agenda at every school. And I'm not just saying that, I really believe that it can enhance people's lives. Sorry.
Keep going.
I really believe it can, music, it's not just about, it's taking away from maths and it's taking away from English and science. It can enhance people's lives, and people can have music with them until they die. There's very few other things you can have with you until you die. Sport generally will peter out later in life because you physically can't do it in your 90s or whatever. Maths, how many of us, once we've finished our A-level maths or GCSE maths, remember all the theorem and the Pythagoras and the pies and equations? We generally forget that. We can all add up and subtract and use percentages, but we don't need much else in life generally. So music is something we can carry with us if we understand it throughout our whole existence. Anyway, so what I've done with the Crescendo project, I believe kids these days are losing the ability to understand musical depth. So yes, I call the current pop music McDonald's music. The reason I call it McDonald's music is because kids will take to it like they take to McDonald's. It's not a particularly nourishing meal. Neither is pop music particularly nourishing for the brain. It's fun, it's quirky, it can have its meaning, and it can be useful. But it's not nourishing the brain in a deep artistic way. So it's 4 minutes of fluffiness. Whereas, and like your McDonald's meal, it's just a quick fix. Whereas classical music is much deeper. Now, to get that depth, you have to understand it. And so what I'm trying to do is take an orchestra into a school, saying that if a kid leaves a school without ever having heard an orchestra, the chances of them then going to an orchestral concert are pretty zero. Because why would you just turn up to something you don't know? So what we do with the Crescendo project is I actually take our Welsh Sinfonia into the school and work next to the kids, so the kids sit next to the professionals. But phase 2 of the Crescendo project is where the kids are then expected to come to our concert, a proper concert put on by the Welsh Sinfonia, and sit and listen to us, because it's another aspect of what I firmly believe, and that's that kids are taught instruments. So everyone likes to bash, scrape, blow, but very few are ever taught to listen. And listening is just as vital in musical terms. My own father-in-law didn't play a musical instrument, and yet I would call him a musician because he had thousands of CDs and he listened avidly and knew nuance. And it was great to see. And I was able to converse with him on a musical level, even though he'd never touched an instrument in his life. So someone that is a listener is just as important as someone who's a player. We don't need more players in the world, there's plenty out there. What we need is more listeners, because there's few out there that understand what they listen to. And I play them Haydn's Clock Symphony. So from that point of view, so that's part 1 of your question. Part 2 of your question, how can the public get involved in it? Well, basically, because of finance, as ever, we've had to choose 5 Welsh schools to work with. So we work in 5 different areas in Wales. variety of schools, everything from Sandfield School in Port Talbot, which is in a community's first area and needs a lot of help on the social aspect. We go in there, and the joy we have there is amazing. We did a crescendo concert in their school, and within we got what I call a proper standing ovation. One often gets standing ovations in formal events where the mayor is there or something, and if the mayor stands up, the whole audience begins to stand up, sort of thing. But this wasn't like that at all. The minute the last piece finished, we finished with the end of Radetzky March, and finished with this, within a minute, everyone on their feet, everyone in the audience was on their feet. And it was a genuine wow factor. Because they'd never had this and never experienced this. So then they wanted it again. Same thing, we work in a school in Machynlleth, near Aberystwyth. Same thing there. And they brought 40 kids plus parents down to our concert in Aberystwyth Concert Hall. And they were amazed, the fact that we were able to integrate with the players, talk to the players. Some of them have sat next to the players in school, but then saw these players dressed up on stage in their tails, and this sort of thing, but didn't see them as an alien body. They saw them as something intimate and that they could talk to. So in the interval, we'd go out there and chat to them. So that's where the Crescendo Project's working in the community. It's working on a musical level. And it's working, as I say, on both levels. One, we're getting to the bottom of playing with the kids, but secondly, we're expecting the kids to have an understanding of listening to us as well.
Is it something that you can take donations for, or?
Yes, we do. We're always looking for funding. The Arts Council give us a certain proportion, but we have to self-fund as well, so we have a matched funding thing with the Arts Council. So although they might give us 55%, we have to find the other 45%. And that comes through various ways. So last year, you may remember that I ran from Cardiff to London in 6 days, 6 marathons in 6 days. Well, next year, in 2016, I'm running from Bangor, up in North Wales, to Cardiff, which is a similar distance but slightly more hilly, in 6 days again.
And probably more rainy, because it's
and
Wales.
Probably more rainy, yes. But I'm really looking forward to it, because the people I meet on the way, the schools get behind this. We're going to try and get sponsorship. I'm going to try and run past some of the schools I'm working with. So I'm going to try and get the kids involved in the sponsorship. Last year we managed to raise £7,000 from that run. And the people I was getting money from, I was delighted with, because many of them I've never met in my life, probably never will meet in my life. But they actually were people that really understood the value of the project. So what I do is I get out there and I actually get in the community and I make it happen. But music services are being underfunded. The music services are disappearing around Wales. Kids who don't have parents with high salary jobs cannot afford to have music lessons in many cases. So it's becoming a middle class and upwards sort of activity again, which is very sad, because Wales, particularly Wales, has always... if you look around the world orchestras, there are Welsh kids from the valleys in many, many world orchestras. And in fact, just the other day, there was a picture of the RPO, I think it was in Geneva or somewhere, and they had a picture of all the Welsh people that had been brought up through the Welsh National Youth Orchestra that are currently serving in the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And there were about 10 of them. And they all had a picture taken together, and they were all discussing how they'd come through different, as I say, from Treorchy and particularly the brass band scene in the brass, but also, violinists from North Wales, everywhere. But none of them are from particularly rich backgrounds. So it's trying to get that money from people to help those who don't have it.
And one thing that the Halle Orchestra has recently done was do a pay what you like for their concerts. So they invite people to come along to the concerts, and at the end of the concert, they don't charge people to get in, but at the end of the concert, people pay based on what they've seen and just how much they've enjoyed the concert, what they think it's worth. Is that something you could ever see yourself doing with one of your orchestras?
I don't know. We're all looking for these little, dare I say it's a gimmick, it is a gimmick. We're all looking for these little gimmicks. And I know restaurants in London did this a few years ago, I don't know whether they're still doing it, where you go along and they don't have a price on the menu, you pay what you feel. It's really tricky, because I think to myself, how would I approach that personally, Because what value do you put, it's interesting. Some people place very high value on it. Other people don't have the money.
Yeah.
You know, so an old lady who maybe is struggling to survive, she may pay £1, but that as a percentage of her income, you know, is vast. Whereas someone who's a multi-millionaire may pay £15 for that ticket, but actually as a percentage of their income, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So this way, I mean, it could be a good way of actually saying to that multi-millionaire, you know, if you really, really did enjoy that concert, then, you know, put what you'd give to Covent Garden, you know, and give the Welsh Sinfonia, you know, if you enjoyed that Haydn performance, give the Welsh Sinfonia £100 for that ticket. I don't know that it'll ever take off long term.
Yeah.
Equally, it comes back to my Crescendo project. The Crescendo project is a 5-year project. It's not a quick fix. And I think that's where it's important. This Halle idea, great, you know, but I can't see them doing that at every single concert for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And equally, I could see myself doing it as a quick fix. When I worked at the BBC, we did education projects, and all was very valid, and we'd go in and do a quick sting in a school, and that school would love us for the time we were in there. But what we always found out was actually, once we disappeared and gone, we never saw them again.
Yeah.
So it didn't become a long-term relationship with the orchestra from a single fix. Whereas the Welsh Sinfonia project, being a 5-year project, we see these schools again and again for 5 years. We see the kids for 5 years, some of them. And then it becomes a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And only by building those long-term relationships can we then start building an audience in Wales for classical and chamber music.
And, well, with 2 of your orchestras being based in Cardiff, the website I'm doing this for, this journalism project, it bases around Cardiff. And so I was wondering, what about the music scene in the city do you most enjoy?
Well, I mean, Cardiff has it has a wealth of classical music, which is why partly I'm taking the Welsh Sinfonia out on tour to Wales. Today we've got a concert in Milford Haven, you know, which is just as valid as having a concert in Cardiff.
Yeah.
Cardiff, you know, has the best facilities in the world. I mean, St David's Hall is one of the top concert halls in the world, and long may it stay, because there was talk last year of that being closed down, which would be an absolute travesty. The Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama has a world-class chamber concert hall. Equally, we have world-class orchestras. The BBC National Orchestra of Wales is a world-class orchestra. The Welsh National Opera, world-class opera, you know, working down at the Millennium Centre, which is again, sorry to use this word again, but it's a world-class, you know, venue for theatre productions and opera. We've got Sinfonia Cymru, which is they're not really a rival of ours, because they operate in a different way. What the Sinfonia Cymru is doing, it has musicians, I think it's up to 26 years old, training them to be the next top professionals. And then the Welsh Sinfonia, we take that on beyond that, and we use those top professionals, some of them who've been through Sinfonia Cymru and are now slightly older, and we use them to take chamber orchestral music. And we can go into halls that the BBC can't go into because of our size. We generally play with 32, but sometimes we work with an 18-piece orchestra. So it means we can go to these towns like Milford Haven, we can go to other small venues around Wales, and play in places like Neath, which we played in last week. So Cardiff, yes, has a wealth and really top-level music making, which is just a joy to be around, really.